WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. This is Newslink. First, the headlines. In Liberia, public outcry prompt investigation into electoral campaign violations ahead of October elections.
The Commission, as of the 5th of May 2023, will begin the documentation of violations and, consistent with due process, apply the appropriate actions against non-compliance as in keeping with the revised campaign guidelines.
The Guinean government facilitates the safe evacuation of its nationals from Sudan to Egypt. World Trade Organization Okonjo Iweala applauds Ghana's advancement in digital trade for women entrepreneurs. An investigative report reveals the execution of over 200, a disappearance of 40, and 1,300 arrests in Chad protest.
This report is asking for just one thing, which is justice for those people, for the survivors, for the victims. The beginning of this report shows that this is not the first time that in the recent history of Chad, the state uses force to crash down opponents and dissidents.
Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is James Adjapong with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us this afternoon. We begin in Liberia, where the Electoral Commission has initiated an investigation into potential violations of election campaign regulations ahead of the upcoming October polls. According to Davidetta Brown-Lansana, the chairperson of the commission, there have been reports of pre-election campaigning activities by certain candidates that violate the rules, leading to public outcry. To address these concerns, the Commission has begun documenting potential campaign violations. WADR's Darlington Pokpa in Monrovia reports.
Davidetta Brown-Lansana has announced that appropriate measures will be taken against individuals who violate the revised campaign guidelines, which have been distributed to all registered political parties. According to her, a fine of not more than $5,000 will be imposed for pre-campaigning activities that violate the guidelines.
The Commission wishes to remind all registered political parties, coalitions, alliances, and would-be aspirants that the campaign period for the 2023 presidential and legislative elections is the 5th of August 2023 to the 8th of October 2023. The Commission, as of the 5th of May 2023, will begin the documentation of violations and, consistent with due process, apply the appropriate actions against non-compliance as in keeping with the revised campaign guidelines.
The European Union ambassador to Liberia, Laurent Didahos, has drawn attention to the widespread practice of voter tracking in violation of the electoral laws.
We call on political parties and the National Elections Commission to be very clear on the implementation of the elections regulation. The campaign regulations are very important because for the functioning of the Liberian democracy, it is essential that there is a level playing field, that there are no players who start campaigning before the others, but the rules must be the same and the rules must be strictly enforced by the National Elections Commission and strictly respected by the political parties.
In light of this situation, Ambassador Didahos has called on the Commission to ensure a free and fair electoral process that upholds the integrity of the October 2023 general and presidential elections. For Newslink on WADR, I am Darlington Pokpa reporting from Monrovia.
In Guinea, the government has facilitated the safe evacuation of 90 of its nationals from Sudan to Egypt. The Director General of Kenyans living abroad, Mamadou Satu Bari, has confirmed that All the evacuated individuals are safe and that no difficulties were encountered with the transport cost. WADR's Conakry correspondent, Cherno Afa Ibrahim Bade, provides more details on this development in a report voiced by Marty C. in our studio.
Clashes in Sudan continue despite ceasefire between the opposing parties. As a result, the Ghanaian government has decided to evacuate its citizens currently residing in Sudan. Mamadou Satiu Bari, the Director General of Ghanaians living abroad, confirms this decision.
Guineans in Sudan are doing very well. Right now, as they are on their way to Conakry, Guineans in Sudan who would like to return to the homeland are already on their way to Cairo, and none of them are in Sudan at the moment.
90 Guineans have expressed a desire to leave Sudan, and on Wednesday, the Ghanaian government chartered buses to transport them to Egypt. Mamadou Satiu Bari addresses the controversy surrounding transportation expenses.
We have never had any difficulties related to the issue of transportation, never. So at the first hour of the fight that broke out in Sudan, the president of the transition instructed the Department of Foreign Affairs to do everything possible to facilitate at the minute all those who wish to return to the country by air.
He equally states that all necessary arrangements have been made to ensure the safe return of all Ghanaian citizens from Egypt to Conakry.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs has already been in Cairo for 2 days and is preparing the reception of all the compatriots who will arrive today. Don't forget that there is also important work to be done in Aswan because we have to proceed to the registration of all these people from Aswan and make sure that a detailed list of the compatriots is established there and their embarkation to Conakry is planned immediately.
The Sudanese Ministry of Health on Wednesday said the clashes in the country have resulted in the deaths of 512 and injured 4,193.
WADR's Conakry correspondent, Cherno Afa Ibrahim Bade, with that report, voiced by Marty C. in our studio.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
If you are just joining in, this is Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. The Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Okonjo Iweala, has commended Ghana for its rapid progress in digital trade for women entrepreneurs. Dr. Okonjo Iweala is currently on a 2-day visit to Ghana, where she plans to meet with policymakers, business leaders, and civil society representatives to discuss strategies for making globalization work for Africa. More details with Atiawene Bella Lawson.
The Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, is on a 2-day visit to Ghana. During her visit, she will interact with female entrepreneurs and hold discussions with Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo and the Trade Ministry. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala commended Ghana's digitization of trade activities and expressed optimism about the prospects of female entrepreneurs in Ghana and their activities in the digital space.
Digitally delivered services are growing fastest, and in Ghana it's doing quite well from the numbers that we can see. So this is an area I want to encourage Ghana very much, digitally delivered and traded services.
In response to Dr. Okonjo-Iweala's visit, the Minister for Trade and Industry of Ghana, Kobina Tahir Hammond, called for the development of improved systems that enable developing countries like Ghana to participate effectively in negotiations of the World Trade Organization.
I've been concerned to learn that you have no proper adjudication system because somehow the appellate system is collapsed. You only have the first tier tribunal. We cannot have a system of this magnitude when we don't have a forum.
Prior to her current position as Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala served as the chair of Gavi, a vaccine alliance, and held positions on the boards of the Standard Chartered plc and Twitter Incorporated. She also served twice as Nigeria's finance minister and briefly acted as the foreign minister in 2006, becoming the first woman to hold both positions. Reporting for Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
In Nigeria, a non-governmental organization with the support of the United States Department and Bureau of International Law Enforcement and Narcotics is conducting a monitoring and evaluation capacity building workshop for selected key stakeholders in the justice sector. The workshop is being held in the capital city of Abuja and aims to help judicial officers understand the reporting requirements of the court administration and case management project, which is being implemented in 3 states. WADR's Usman Numai in Abuja reports.
The Public and Private Development Center, PPDC, a non-governmental organization, is organizing a workshop through its court administration and case management project. Badejogmi Oluwatoyin leads the court administration and management project at PPDC, along with Shita Jibril and Chibuzo Ekweku, the chief executive officer and board chairman of PPDC, respectively.
The Court Administration and Case Management Project is a pilot that has been implemented in 3 states, the states of Kaduna, Nasarawa State, and Plateau State. And so far, we're looking at implementing a whole range of interventions that will not only strengthen case management, it will help to speed up court trial processes.
As we demonstrated, as we show the impact, the effect and impact, that the states themselves would also invest in the program. They will take up the program and improve its expansion across the judicial systems, police system, the administration of criminal justice system.
The case management, evidence management, the court administration and case scheduling in our various judicial offices and systems need to improve, and which is why we have this project, which is funded by the IN.
During the workshop, a participant from Kaduna emphasized the significance of the project and its potential impact on the judiciary.
System where a judge is writing longhand throughout is different from when the judge just sits down to listen and then they see a recorder somewhere recording what is happening. That way, the judge takes possession of more cases.
It is hoped that when many state governments across the country support and fund the implementation of the project, it will kickstart much-needed reforms in the judiciary. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Amid the crisis caused by nationalization of the assets of Esso Chad, the Secretary General of the Cameroonian Presidency, Ferdinand Ngo on Wednesday paid a diplomatic visit to President Mahamat Idris Deby in the capital city of N'Djamena. The visit aims to address the tensions between the 2 countries and potentially resolve the ongoing dispute. Oge Obiorika has more in the following report.
The Cameroonian minister said he conveyed a message of friendship and brotherhood from his president to his Chadian counterpart. Despite concerns of tension between the 2 countries over the management of Chad-Cameroon pipelines, Ferdinand Ngongo assured that the long-standing and excellent relations between Cameroon and Chad remain intact. He retweeted that all misunderstandings have been clarified and there are no issues in the relations between the 2 nations, adding that the 2 heads of state are committed to enhancing their relations for the benefit of their respective countries and peoples. On April 20, N'Djamena recalled its ambassador from Yaoundé for consultations. This was in response to an agreement signed by a subsidiary of Savannah Energy transferring 10% of the share capital of Cameroon Oil Transportation Company to the National Hydrocarbons Company, SNH. However, Chad has decided to nationalize the assets and rights of any kind of Esso Chad and has refused the purchase of these shares by Savannah Energy.
Oge Obiorika filed that report. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. In Liberia, public outcry prompts investigation into election campaign violations ahead of October polls. The Guinean government facilitates the safe evacuation of its nationals from Sudan to Egypt. World Trade Organization's Okonjo Iweala applauds Ghana's advancement in digital trade for women entrepreneurs. An investigative report reveals the execution of over 200 and the disappearance of 40 and 1,300 arrests in the Chad protests. Still ahead, we have our newspaper review, guest interview, and some sports updates. Kindly stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
This is West Africa Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Still in Chad, 6 months after a series of demonstrations in the country, the World Organization Against Torture and the Chadian Human Rights League released an investigative report revealing the grave human rights violations that occurred during the protests. The report indicates that there were 218 deaths, hundreds of injuries, dozens of torture cases, 40 disappearances, and over 1,300 arrests. The report aims to provide additional information to human rights organizations and support their investigative work to ensure legal proceedings against the perpetrators of the violence that occurred on what they refer to as Black Thursday. Isidore Nguele is Senior Human Rights Advisor for the African Region World Organizations Against Torture.
3 months of investigation in the most important cities, mostly in N'Djamena and Mundu, where human rights violations happened on October 20th of last year. After peaceful demonstration, almost 218 people were killed in violent assaults. Soldiers openly opened fire against demonstrators. Talked to family, we've talked to doctors, we've visited hospitals where we've seen corpses, and we've seen corpses impacted by bullets on the head, the chest, and the back of the people, which means they are targeted. We've also documented testimonies of enforced disappearances. We have closely to 40 people that are disappeared today, the majority of them being from the opposition party, Les Transformateurs. We still have families testifying that their family members were arrested on the 20th at home, so meaning that people that were not demonstrating and that until today they don't know their whereabouts. We have also documented testimonies of people that were arrested and detained in the high prison of Korotoro in the northern part of the country for closely 2 months, chained, deprived of food, of health, and tortured on a daily basis.
So what does the report seek to achieve?
It's not very complicated. This report is asking for just one thing, which is justice for those people, for the survivors, for the victims. The beginning of this report shows that this is not the first time that in the recent history of Chad, the state uses force to crash down opponents and dissidents. But there has never been any accountability into this. And what we have seen makes us worry and makes us afraid that this country might go back to its darkest history. And we are calling upon the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, that is opening its 75th session next week, deploy a human rights fact-finding mission that will actually establish violations we've just mentioned in this report.
Isidore Nguelo is a Senior Human Rights Advisor for the Africa Region World Organization Against Torture.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Up next, we have our press stories from Ghana with WADR Satiawen and Bella Lawson.
Greetings from Accra, Ghana. Welcome to the newspaper review for today, Thursday, April 27, 2023. Let's start with the headlines in the Daily Guide newspaper. The screaming headline, Nana names new CJ. President Nana Akufo-Addo has nominated Gertrude Tokono, a Supreme Court Justice, to be Ghana's next Chief Justice. Some banner headlines for you. Ratify Fisheries Subsidiary Agreement, WTO boss. And there's a picture there of the president of the World Trade Organization with President Akufo-Addo and some other members of government. Then another banner headline, Court jurors strike over unpaid stipends. And then we have two more banner headlines. Otumfo clocks 24 on golden stool, and 3 Takwa gold robbers busted. So those are the headlines in the Daily Guide newspaper. Let's now go to the Ghanaian Times newspaper. The screaming headline, National Communications Authority to block 11 million SIMs at the end of May 2023. Then another banner headline we have here, Green Ghana Day targets planting 10 million trees nationwide. Veep woos Austrian investors to Ghana, and President nominates Justice Mrs. Tokono as Chief Justice. So those are the headlines in the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Of course, let's now go to the Daily Graphic newspaper. Green Ghana Day, June 9, Commission pledges to protect forest resources. That's a banner headline. Another banner headline, NCA forensic audit to weed out fraudulent SIM registration. 6.17 million cards deactivated, 11.1 million more to go. So those are the 2 banner headlines in the Daily Graphic newspaper. The screaming headline says Adjapong secures $30 million for rice production. So those are the headlines in the Daily Graphic newspaper. We'll end today by looking at business stories. In the Business Finder, the screaming headline, Valco's rebound continues, post positive performance in second straight year, ready for investors to partner and modernize it. Then some banner headlines, will build better, safer roads in Ghana. That's according to the minister, and 10 million trees to be planted to mark the Green Ghana Day in June. So those are the headlines in the major dailies in Ghana today. I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Atiawin, for that newspaper review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The guest interview today will focus on Liberia, where the Electoral Commission has released revised guidelines for political parties' campaigns ahead of the upcoming election scheduled for October 10, 2023. The Commission has also launched an investigation into potential violations of election campaign regulations to ensure a level playing field for all political parties. Our guest, Anderson Miamin, will discuss ways to promote transparency, credibility, and fairness in the election by ensuring the full enforcement of these regulations proposed by the Electoral Commission.
I mean, we have to just spot the issues that we may have from time to time with the way things are happening. I think we also have a responsibility to consider what comes from the Elections Commission. If there are issues, we can always raise them once we find them out or once we investigate. But yes, I think what you're alluding to is something that we can accept. As we move on, we can then monitor, we can then comment on things that happen. But yes, for the time being, we can accept it and then engage with the process and see what happens.
All right, so let's talk about voter tracking, where most political parties or even aspirants will transport voters from one place to another, which is a violation that the Electoral Commission talked about. It seems it will be announced like this, but the reality will always be different. How can there be a level playing field for all political parties in your view?
I mean, the system has to be balanced in terms of the way it engages with the different political parties. So we have laws, we have guidelines, and those guidelines have to be implemented. The laws have to be enforced in ways that they protect the interests of everyone or to protect the rights of everyone, basically. So voter tracking is a phenomenon that has been associated with the Liberian elections. And reports have come up that different aspirants have been tracking people in different localities or different locations in the country. Civil society organizations, those who have been monitoring very closely on the ongoing registration process, have been commenting on this. Just yesterday, the EU observation mission commented on the issue of voters trucking, and it's something that, of course, we do not want to see. This is why the Elections Commission has to be very robust in engaging with the different parties, the different aspirants, to see to it that they are in conformity with the different laws and regulations that are on the board.
So finally, the electoral cycle involves the post-electoral processes such as counting, declaration of results, and even acceptance by different political factions. Do you think all minds and hearts are settled on the approach the Commission is using to ensure a credible and transparent elections come October 2023?
That's what we want. That's what we anticipate. But we believe that there are issues that need to be addressed. We can't say entirely that there will not be issues after the elections, because people have started to raise issues. Pre-campaigning is taking place. We see some aspirants posting billboards and different things in different locations across the country. That's pre-campaigning. We expect the Elections Commission to speak to those things. Just yesterday, they were talking about taking actions against people who will be involved with pre-campaigning. We want them to go beyond just issuing threats and begin to act as quickly as possible, because the field has to be level for all of the different players. If the Elections Commission and the other players can put the right kind of mechanisms in place and do the needful, of course, we do not expect anything violent or other unbecoming situations after the election.
Anderson Miamin is a civil society activist for Liberia Center for Transparency. And here's Sam Kule Janko with some sports updates.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Ghana International Thomas Partey's Arsenal had a major blow to their title contention following a 4-1 thrashing by Manchester City in the English Premier League on Wednesday night. A brace from Kevin De Bruyne, John Stones and Erling Haaland were enough for the citizens. Arsenal, who have been top of the league table for the entire season, still tops the table 2 points ahead of City, who played 2 games less. Also, Nigeria Football Federation has announced 2 international friendlies for the national under-20 team ahead of the FIFA under-20 World Cup. The Flying Eagles will play 2 friendly matches this week at the Mashoud Abiola Stadium, Abuja, according to local media reports. The youngsters are expected to take on 2 football academies on Friday and Saturday. A Nigerian businessman, Dozie, possesses 150 million takeover of Sheffield United is set to collapse amid claims the tycoon forked out £8.7 million to support the financially striking club, according to the Mail. The Nigerian tycoon reportedly spent close to £9 million into the club since November 2022 to help the cash-strapped Blades fulfill their financial obligation and the expectations. His protected buyout would be ratified early in 2023. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM, and in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lufa County, and in Ghana on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Christian Mukidi has been the exception on the console. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek for our Facebook Live coverage. Do interact with us via our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up next is a rebroadcast of our flagship environment program, Enviroscope. I am James Adjapong. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music, get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Start
Starting this month, we bring you premium content.
We bring you premium content
that you can't get elsewhere. 2023 on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM. We are stepping up broadcasting.
Tune in daily and enjoy the best of contemporary radio broadcasts. You know we are the West African pride. Premium content.
West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar.